Maria. Welcome back to No Apologies. Today we're going to continue to take a look at Christ's personal character as a proof or as a motive of credibility to believe in his claim to be divine. And today we want to look at the fact that Jesus Christ was the greatest teacher that the world has ever known. Two characteristics of a great teacher are that they have to have a great and a deep knowledge of the things that they want to impart to others, and second, that they're able to impart those things with a power and with an effect. Now there's no question that Christ had a deep understanding of the things of which he taught. He taught about God and his perfections. He taught about the kingdom of heaven, about our duties of justice and mercy toward our neighbors, about the vanities of this world, and continually exhorted us to live lives of purity and of faith. Now all these things he taught with a great simplicity and a beauty in such a way that the least gifted of his hearers were able to understand some of the things of which he taught, but at the same time the most gifted and the most learned could never exhaust the deep richness of his doctrine. His wisdom was unmatched by anyone, constantly confounding and humiliating his enemies, and at the same time causing others to marvel and appeal at the amazing discourse which came from his lips, asking, "Where did this man get such learning? Is this not the son of the carpenter?" The ability of Christ to move and to captivate his listeners can only be described as supernatural, something beyond man's ability. His very words were enough to send away the band of soldiers which came to arrest him, simply because never did a man speak like this man before. And again in the scriptures, in the Gospel of Matthew chapter 7 at verse 28, we read, "And when Jesus finished these sayings, the crowds were astonished at his teaching, for he taught them as one who had authority, and not as their scribes." And again in the Gospel of Luke chapter 4, starting at verse 31, "And he went down to Capernaum, a city of Galilee, and he was teaching them on the Sabbath. And they were astonished at his teaching, for his word was with authority." And further down in verse 36, "And they were all amazed and said to one another, 'What is this word? For with authority and power he commands the unclean spirits, and they come out.'" The power of Christ's teaching shows itself in the fact that men listened to him. Some left everything the first moment they heard his voice. Others crowded around him and followed him throughout their synagogues, throughout the streets of their cities, across lakes, and deep into the wilderness, just to hear the truths that came from the lips of the Son of God. Now all of these are motives of credibility. They all point to the fact that there is something beyond man here. There is something supernatural. And again, although we admit that just the fact that Christ is the greatest teacher the world has ever seen is not in itself a direct proof of his claim to be God, we do say again that it indirectly is a proof, in the same way that the holiness of his life was. Because all of these things are proof that his teaching was most notable and worthwhile. And at the very core and at the very center of that teaching was that he is God. So if Christ is acknowledged as a great teacher, then he must be a true teacher, because a teacher of lies is not a great teacher at all. So Christ is a great teacher precisely because he is a true and powerful teacher. He teaches truths, and that is what strikes to the heart. And the greatest truth of all that he taught was the fact that he was God. So in the end, we can say that those who admire Christ as a teacher, yet deny his divinity, are acting unreasonably. Someone is not worthy of admiration who perpetuates a fraud, no matter how superb his presentation. So thanks for joining me here on No Apologies. Ave Maria.